It's 6 o'clock, January 16th. This is the Water Commission meeting for the City of Glendora, and I'd like to call the meeting together. For the audience, my name is Richard Hansen, and I'm the chairman of the committee, and I'll be presiding over the meeting this evening. If you have any business, we have speakers cards out in the lobby if you want to fill out a speakers card and bring them to Roxanne before the end of the public comment period. Also, I've already turned my cell phone off. David, you've turned yours off, and everybody's got their cell phones off, so there's no interruptions for the meeting this evening. Again, this is a public meeting, and we appreciate everyone who's in attendance and your participation this evening. So it looks like everyone is here except Justin Nakano, who has rendered his resignation. He took a new job with the Chino Basin Watermaster, or the main San Gabriel Basin Watermaster, and there's a rule that says that he could not serve on the commission if he was working at main San Gabriel Basin Watermaster. So we have a vacancy for right now, and I'm sure the City Council will fill it as quickly as they can. Okay, so everyone's here. Why don't you all stand with me, and I'll lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda? Want to reorder anything? Okay, staff has nothing. So we'll move right on to the public comment period. Anybody want to make a comment? We've got a couple of public members out in the audience, I guess. Now they're just smiling and have no comments. So Roxanne, we receive any correspondence or anything?
We have not.
Okay, well, then I'll close the public comment period. Anybody have anything they want to report? Anything you want to talk about? No? Paul, anything? Not till you get to your report? Okay.
No, not at this time.
All right, we'll move right on to
I did have a question for the water department. Are you reporting on all that? Conservation, or because I don't see any of the other regulars here.
Yeah, actually, we've got. I'll take the opportunity.
Okay.
Damian Martinez actually just joined us about 2 months ago as the water division manager. Sorry.
Okay.
And he'll be working with Dale as the other manager. Damian's actually going to be overseeing production and conservation. So.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Dale wasn't able to make the meeting, so
Okay.
I'll be covering for him.
And Damien's replacing.
Jake, if you recall.
Oh, Jake. Oh, that's
yeah.
right. Jake moved on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Okay, so we'll move right on to item number 2, which is the water distribution update for the second quarter. And Assistant Public Works Director Paul Zampiello will give us a report.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair. This evening I'm going to be doing the report and jumping into it. What I wanted to do is, I know we've had several conversations or updates in regards to the issues that have come up with reporting or identifying what emergency work and overtime, and working with Dale and the team, we were able to really do an assessment of what we identified as emergency, after hours, and regular work. These were defined a little bit differently than what we've been tracking in the past. Obviously, work had been being completed by staff at an emergency level, but the way in which we were actually documenting that was a little bit wasn't necessarily reflective of what constitutes emergencies and after hours. So, in developing and enhancing our GIS system and some of our new mapping that we're implementing, we started to look at that, and in doing that, okay, sorry. I thought I jumped too far ahead. What we wanted to do was be able to provide a little bit of an outline of what constitutes the different types of leaks that we deal with on a daily basis. First of which is the emergency leaks. Emergency leaks are ones that not necessarily come up during just an after hours, or it's really not constituted at any point in the day. Really, the biggest thing with the leak is the public safety. If it's going to cause any damage to property or to the water system. Examples of these types of leaks are large water main breaks, anything that's flooding a property or flooding into a building. And a good example of this is a sheared fire hydrant, whether it's hit or damaged in a vehicle accident. So that's what kind of an emergency leak would be. An after-hours leak is anything that happens outside of normal working hours. This, and really the response depends on the severity. These can vary from very small leaks, where meter box leak or a service line leak, and they don't necessarily meet the criteria of emergency, where what we've identified as a staff report to that leak or to that reported leak, they identified that the water loss is minor and it doesn't constitute needing to bring out a full entire crew at that point. And the following day or the next business day, we can have someone come out and do that work under normal working hours or during daylight, where it's a little bit safer, it's a little bit more manageable. And then obviously the final is a non-emergency regular leak, where it doesn't pose any immediate threat to safety or service of water to anyone, including the service. This work can obviously be scheduled during normal working hours or is scheduled, and it's typically a service line leak, where we might get a report of a water main leak, minor wet spot, or low flow of water in the street. And so in doing this, and this kind of what I've gone over, but the difference between after hours versus emergency really kind of splits that way in which we've been in the past reviewing or kind of collecting that information. So in the past, we've reported that emergency leaks are kind of anything that happens outside of normal business. And so in doing this and kind of having this defined, it's not only given us a better opportunity to refine our documentation, but also to make sure that our response is more appropriate or more accurate to the needs of the water system. And then just jumping into our reporting of leaks, over the last quarter, we did have a number of water main leaks, a slight increase over last year's December, but overall we had 56 leaks comparative to last year, where we had 79 leaks. So there was a reduction in that. And again, as we've kind of looked at it over the period of the last few years, is we're not seeing a huge increase in leaks, and that's really definitely a testament to the reoccurring and the maintenance response that we're doing with having fully staffed field staff to respond to those leaks. And as we start to get some of the capital, the CIPs, we're able to get those problem areas that we're working towards. This is a little bit of a breakdown of the actual types of leaks versus mains, service lines, and fire hydrants. And like I said, looking at the data, we've stayed pretty consistent over the last 3 years, which, albeit when you look at that, you think, well, why aren't we seeing a decrease? But as the system ages, we're going to typically if we can maintain these levels and see those small decreases, we're never going to. We still have an old system. We still have an aging system that, as we continue to do, we're only keeping up. So keeping the maintenance going, keeping the CIPs is critical, which is a true testament to all of our operations staff. And this was something that we had added to the presentation, or just to report on, is the 3-year comparison. And with this data, it is a little bit hard to kind of see any kind of trend. And really there isn't a trend other than just seeing that there is still that consistent flat line of leaks. You will see that there are some high points that you see in August and the July, the summer months. Typically, we do see an increase. That's due to several different factors, the temperature, but more so the usage increases, where you start to see some higher flows throughout the system, and that sometimes can create more leaks in some of the problem areas. And with that, I would just ask if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and just to receive and file the report.
Okay, questions? David?
No question.
Greg? Pat?
I guess it's kind of a thought, and I don't know if you can actually really answer it. So if we were in a year with severe drought conditions, would the plan to tackle some of those non-emergency leaks theoretically happen faster, just for the sense of conserving water? I don't know if that even makes sense. I mean, does that make sense?
No,
I was thinking about when you were saying, some of them are not considered emergencies. Valid, totally valid. But if we were in a severe drought condition, would that change anything?
no,
You think?
no. Totally understand what the question. I think really the approach that we've taken as staff is that whether we're in or not in a drought, our response is always going to be the same. It's trying to reduce that water loss, because ultimately having that is going to be something that the state has really mandated as a way of life for water agencies or cities. So that response is going to always be based on how much water. And so when we're talking the leaks that kind of wait or can be held over, they're minor, and what we are doing is, with the new work order system, with the GIS implementation, is taking that data as the field staff are collecting that, completing those work orders. They're actually doing calculations. Once we've identified and repaired the leak, they're able to do a calculation to know what that water was. So once we've reported it, or it's been reported to us, we record that upon completion, and we're able to tabulate that water, and then the conservation team takes that data and compiles that, where we compare what our production and consumption data, so to get that water loss. So our ultimate goal, no matter whether it's severe drought or kind of non-drought, is always to reduce that. So that's how we evaluate the leak severity. And again, the other thing to take into consideration, sometimes you might see a leak and it might be a few days. It's because we're prioritizing different leaks. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a triage to it, where we'll try to get to the most important leaks, or the more severe, and that's why we wanted to really present that. But it was also helpful for staff to really kind of sit down and articulate that in the way we presented it this evening.
Thank you for that. And then just one other thought or question maybe. So the number of leaks for the last 3 years is somewhat consistent, based on the charts you showed. But costs are going up, labor's going up, everything's going up. So has there been, or is it anticipated that there is going to need to be an increase in budget for that portion of the budget to handle leaks, even if the annual number stays similar to other years, or even it goes down? Is more of the budget going to have to be allocated to that? Or has it been, or is it being considered that it's going to have to be at some point?
Yeah, what we've looked at and what we continue to look at as staff on the budget side is as operational costs, it's not only just the water repair, it's also some of the production or the assessments. Those continue to go up. We have connections with Metropolitan and other agencies, some of the assessments that we receive. Everything is going up incrementally, and some of it is going up quite drastically. So what we are doing every year, we do anticipate that, so that cost, whether it's like I said, the repairs, we're trying to anticipate that or building that into the budget to accommodate or to address those things. But yeah, it's one of those things that capital is helping with that, with the pipeline replacement, but it's just kind of keeping us going.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Paul, I noticed a number of valve cans were leaking up and down Cullen. Was there a change in pressure in that zone, or was that just a coincidence that?
No. It actually, what happened was we had an issue on Virginia and Cullen. There was a leak, and we had to operate the valves in that area. And number of those valves, that line was actually installed in the early mid-30s. We found that were in poor condition. So we ended up having to do a valve replacement, and our operations staff actually performed that. However, when we went to do that work, one of the valves that was used in that isolation broke. And so we ended up having to do, the good news is we have 2 brand new valves in the water system, but the unfortunate part is that we did do some of that. We did that as a result of kind of that work. So the staff did a great job. We were able to minimize the shutdown window. It was something that we were able to schedule, so no one was out of water unanticipated. One of the reasons why it was delayed a little bit is this kind of popped up during the holidays, and we didn't want to cause any major issues for anyone. It was something that was manageable. So
Yeah, it just seemed to be a coincidence that it was both valve cans were leaking there on Cullen.
yeah, it was as a result of us working those valves. So that's one of the things.
Good. I'm glad that staff was able to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's commendable that the leaks have not increased despite the aging of the lines. I want to point out that 2 years ago, we approved a major rate increase and also worked, on the bonding functions for this, for the infrastructure capital. Last session, we had a constituent inquiring about the rates. So one thing that I had asked to see is where we are on the budgets and the capital. And I know last session we addressed it, that we have not seen it for a while. The staff was going to be presenting that to us. So as a follow-up for the rate increase that was approved, which included capital infrastructure for our future here, we haven't really gotten an update on that. So, we addressed it a little bit last session. I would like to start seeing that moving forward.
Yeah, I'd like to see that in April, Paul.
Yeah, no, and that was one thing before Bill retired. He had made mention that we had presented, I believe, in April, a budgetary update for last year's, so we can definitely incorporate that into the April.
Yeah, okay.
Just a question. So the rate increase was like, what, a year ago? Approximately, let's just say?
I think it was about a year ago, but it stayed, the way they do it is they stage it. Everybody doesn't get hit all at once, so, but.
I guess my question about that was, I don't know, and I totally support what you're saying about seeing that, but I wonder if there's been enough revenue from that to have made a difference in the capital, unless it's those bonds, which, have we gotten those and where are we at with that? And I think that's probably what you want to see, right? So I guess my question as he's speaking, I'm thinking, has there been a difference in revenue based on the rate increase that has affected available capital, or has it been the bonds? In which case, all of that comes back to where is that and where are we at with that? So, but I was just curious if the rate increase has even made a dent in any of that yet.
Made a dent in my budget. With a 2-inch line in the hills, yeah.
I was thinking more macro. Anyway, so yeah, so I think that would be great to see as well.
Yeah, we can.
Kind of from all those perspectives is what has the rate increase done, but also any bonds or any other funding, like what has it done to any available capital? So,
All right, with that, can we get a motion to receive and file the water distribution update?
I give a motion.
Been moved,
second
second.
and third, Dave.
Where's our, how do we vote? There we go. Okay, it's been moved by Greg, seconded by Pat, passed unanimously 4-0. Okay, moving on to item number 3 is the Water Conservation Program update. Senior Management Analyst Russell Ackerman is going to give us an update.
Good evening, Chair Hansen, Commissioners. I'll be presenting the second quarter Water Conservation Program update. First, we'll start off with our education and outreach. Back in October, we celebrated California Water Professionals Week by posting this on social media, drawing attention to the important work that we do at the Water Division to provide safe, clean, and reliable water every day to the residents of Glendora. We had mentioned this before. MWD held its annual regional water conservation poster contest, and staff submitted 12 entries from Glendora's local contest held in May. And we were happy to announce an 8th grade student from Goddard Middle School had been selected as one of the winners out of thousands of students in Southern California, and was invited to attend a special student recognition event in December to receive an award at MWD's headquarters. Staff promoted the 2026 Water Awareness Poster Contest flyer to all Glendora teachers with entries due by March 13th of 2026. And to support ongoing outreach efforts, a water awareness poster calendar was created featuring artwork from the previous year's winning students. We've provided a copy to each of you, and we'll also be providing copies to teachers at our local schools. Staff conducted water conservation presentations at Sutherland and Washington elementary schools, engaging students in discussions about the importance of saving water, covering topics like local water resources, simple conservation techniques, and the environmental impact of daily water use. We also distributed a citywide bill insert that you may have received, informing customers about MWD's residential water efficiency rebate program that we co-fund, and also promoting MWD's turf replacement program for eligible commercial, industrial, and institutional customers. MWD temporarily increased this commercial turf rebate to $7 per square foot, which is the highest that it's been. And this created a great demand, and I will actually address that later in the presentation. In October, a design seminar workshop was held to demonstrate how to create drought-resistant gardens. We mentioned this last time as well. These are workshops that are funded through the Metropolitan Water District. But at the workshop, we highlighted our Landscape Professionals Service Reimbursement Program, where qualifying applicants can receive a rebate for utilizing the services of landscape design and installation experts. Next, we look forward to our annual Earth Day Festival on April 18th in Fink Minor Park. We're currently in discussion with a local social media star to host a workshop that we think residents will find very interesting. Details to follow later. Moving on to our conservation programs, residents continue to be able to take advantage of our water use efficiency survey program with WaterWise Consulting, a local Glendora business. Residents can get free water use surveys, irrigation retrofits, fix minor leaks in the irrigation system, and overall enhance water efficiency at their property. These services are available at no cost to the community to help conserve water. Staff continue to promote our co-funding partnership with Metropolitan through the residential turf replacement program and the water efficient device rebate program. However, I'd like to point out that contrary to what this slide is showing, the federal grant funding that funded an additional $1 per square foot to bring MWD's contribution to $3 is no longer available. So MWD dropped from $3 to $2 a square foot, but we had anticipated this and budgeted for this. So as a result, the city of Glendora is now contributing an additional $2 per square foot on top of the $2 that Metropolitan is providing. And this is for replacing existing turf grass with drought-tolerant landscaping. So the incentive remains at $4 a square foot, and the extra incentives for planting trees, including fruit trees, up to 5. You get $100 extra to put a tree in for up to 5 trees on your property as part of this program. In addition, the city continues to match funding for any of the water efficient devices that the MWD program funds through the SoCal Water Smart program. Now, getting back to the MWD commercial program, the rebate amount was $7 per square foot, and in the couple of months that it was released, there was so much demand that all of this additional funding has been allocated. As a result, commercial property owners can now expect to receive $4 a square foot to replace up to 50,000 square feet for commercial properties to replace either functional or non-functional turf grass with climate-appropriate landscaping. We will be evaluating co-funding opportunities at the end of the fiscal year if we want to help bring that back up, seeing as that did have such a great effect on program participation. Looking at overall year-to-year, 24-25, the overall water usage shows a slight increase of 2.37% in water usage. Rainfall, we saw also nearly identical numbers, close to 25 inches. However, I'd like to point out that this rain data is from our weather gauge at the water yard. And it's not the rainfall data that the state uses to calculate our outdoor water budgets. So for the urban water use objective and other purposes. As a result, staff is recommending to include the state's data from the Cal Scimitar program that is specific to Glendora in the next presentation to the commission. Speaking of the urban water use objective, in December, city staff submitted the urban water use objective report to the California State Water Resources Control Board, and the objective showed a 15.5% reduction for the fiscal year 25-26. This is a 5% reduction from last fiscal year, and it's due in part to slightly lower actual water use that you see on the bottom here, almost a 3.3% difference. But we also had a significant increase in the evapotranspiration rates that they use to calculate the outdoor water budget. So this is information that's supplied by the Department of Water Resources. It's part of the California Irrigation Management System. It's a network of 150 weather stations throughout the state that DWR uses to provide urban retail water suppliers calculations for the urban water use objective. And this slide shows an example of what that effect is on like a residential outdoor water budget. The landscape efficiency factor is not changing till 2035. Our landscape area, the square footage that's supplied by the landscape area measurement data from DWR, that's not really changing. It's really this ETO factor, this evapotranspiration factor, that can change from year to year, and that change has a significant impact on calculating our overall urban water use objective target. Finally, the city is currently working with Three Valleys Municipal Water District in the development of the Regional Urban Water Management Plan on behalf of its 6 member agencies, including the City of Glendora. The necessary data for plan development has been provided, and the regional urban water management plan is expected to be completed by March of this year, and we will be bringing that before you at the next commission meeting. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Questions, Pat?
Thank you for that. Thank you for the calendar, too. Can you go back a couple slides? Is it possible to do that? Keep going, I'll tell you when. Like 3 more, I think it is. 1 more. Go forward. Nope, right there. Oh, you had it. Sorry. No, that one right there, yeah. Sorry, I forgot. I didn't know what to call it. I was just curious. That's great news that they used it up. Do you know what was allocated for the turf replacement, dollar-wise? And then also, do you know how much turf? Do you know the numbers on that? What was already?
So I don't know
Okay.
the total numbers. I can get those for you.
I was curious.
But yeah, there's been money promised, so to speak, but they still have to complete the projects.
Okay.
And so it's a situation where if you apply before February 28th of this year, you may end up in a queue where you may get funding that was previously allocated to someone else that didn't complete a project, and that may affect your total rebate amount.
Yeah.
For the purposes of communicating without creating false expectations for CII customers, we're saying it's $4 a square foot kind of as the starting point, and that's what you would expect to get, but you may end up getting more. We're still waiting because this demand increase was in November and December. We're still waiting to see, are these projects going to be completed by September, and will all of that money be used up? But we can certainly get you those actual numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it would be neat to know how much money was given out in rebates for it, and how much, more importantly, how much turf was replaced. It'd just be kind of neat to know that. Also, I did have one more question. I think a couple slides previously. It was one of the brochures. Keep going. It was the one where it talked about I think like before this. Well, I don't want you to keep going back and forth, but it was one of the brochures that talked about if you use a landscape professional, you get more of a rebate. And I guess my question to that was, does a resident need to use a landscape professional to design it and do the work in order to qualify for this, or there's just additional rebates if they do that?
So the first eligibility requirement would be if you're participating in the MWD residential or commercial turf rebate program. And then the second thing is you don't have to use a landscape design professional that meets our qualifications. You should be using a landscape contractor because generally the work will be over $600, right? But in terms of, who you choose and what their professional credentials are, that's up to you, as long as it's meeting state landscape regulations. But it's tied to that program. So if you aren't participating in the turf program, then you wouldn't be eligible for the landscape professional services reimbursement program.
Okay, this is residential, right? Or is this commercial?
It's actually both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where I was going with that is that, for example, I have a neighbor whose lawn is just weeds, and she's talked about replacing it with, something that's, whatever, maybe, more conservative landscape or rocks or whatever. So she would probably be a good candidate for something like this, but I don't think that she would want to nor be able to hire someone to do it. So she was going to possibly do it herself, right? So I guess where I was going with this is if somebody wanted to take on the work themselves, obviously there's costs for whatever the cost may be, would they not be able to qualify for any rebates for any of the materials they purchase if they wanted to do the work themselves? Like, do they have to hire somebody to do it in order to get these rebates, I guess? Going back to that question?
So Metropolitan is reimbursing you on the square footage of the turf removed, and they're running that SoCal Water Smart program. Right. If a homeowner decided to do the landscape design themselves, but doesn't meet our qualifications. So are they a member of the American Professional Landscape Design community? Are they a licensed landscape architect? We have a list of qualifications. They may be a homeowner that does meet one of those qualifications. And what we're really incentivizing is good design, because a really well-designed landscape will create less maintenance issues down the road and will save more water over time. So I can't say that, no, they don't qualify, but generally, if it's a homeowner doing it themselves and they're not meeting our eligibility requirements for that, then they wouldn't qualify for this additional rebate.
So just play devil's advocate then, and I totally agree, understand that. Couldn't there be a way that there can be some guidance on a homeowner doing it themselves without some of those qualifications so that they could participate in this? Because when I was reading, I was thinking, as you were reading it and I was looking, I was thinking, but what if somebody just can't afford to hire somebody like that? What if they want to get some guidelines, replace the turfs themselves, do it within the construct of whatever the guidelines are for having a good design, but they're going to do the work themselves, right? So which means they're probably not going to, belong to one of the organizations or whatever. They likely wouldn't qualify for this then, which might then prevent them from doing anything about it. So I guess where I'm going is, could there ever be some consideration that maybe a resident who doesn't have any of those qualifications, but still is able to do the work within the construct of what needs to be done, could be included in this? I mean, just for the sake of somebody being able to do it and participate, even if they can't afford to hire the professionals. I just wonder if that would actually,
Russell,
I wonder if it would get more people involved, knowing that, hey, if I could do the work myself, I don't have to go hire somebody, is what I'm thinking.
correct me if I'm wrong. Some of the guidelines or the restrictions or the requirements that was established by Metropolitan, or is that did we establish those?
For this reimbursement program, we established the guidelines for that. And we're really incentivizing the landscape design professional community to get more involved in the turf transformation programs. By incentivizing professionals, we're actually creating another avenue for marketing, for outreach, because they're incentivized to do this. In fact, that has kind of what has been going on with participants, is that they say, hey, there's an additional rebate for this if you use our professional services.
I got you.
And I'm happy to explore the idea of sort of a self-certified process. It may be complicated in terms of execution, as opposed to, someone just submitting a rebate saying, I did, I designed this on my, dining room table. But I think that's something we would have to consider further as to execution of the program, and would that create any sort of inconsistencies for us?
I don't want to blow up your whole program here. I was just spitballing how other people
that's
who might be inclined to be like, oh, I can't afford that.
That's a great question.
If only I could do it myself and still participate. The thought crossed my mind as I was looking at this.
And just to add to what Russell had said, I think the ultimate goal with this service program is to do a comprehensive reduction, where there are some other programs out there that help with some just homeowners that are on a budget or looking to do something small or moderate, where they can do some plant voucher or some of the turf removal type things, where this is something what we've seen in the past, and I'm sure we've seen that previous turf programs where there were kind of fly-by-night companies that came in and did a really poor job and it didn't last. That also had a negative impact on the perception of conservation and landscape revival or renewal, because people said, well, I don't want my yard to look like that. And so I think that having the professional services, albeit there are some people that can definitely do some great landscaping on their own, having that service, having that design, I think is the biggest part to that.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Greg?
Can you help me clarify something? So for our conservation, We showed 25 as having a 2.37 increase in water usage, with the rainfalls fairly equal. But looking at the urban water use objective, it's showing a slight decrease. And the corollary question is then, how are we going to get to a 15% reduction this year, given these recent numbers?
Yes, the comparisons we're showing here are calendar year for 24-25 water usage, and the urban water use objective is based on the fiscal year. And so the numbers would be different because of that.
So did we decrease usage this past?
So we did in the last fiscal year, we did decrease by 3.3%.
Okay.
So we did in that time unit, and maybe what might be helpful is to present data in a graph that shows the fiscal year water usage from year to year, and maybe that we can look at that and compare that to this because I completely understand the calendar year versus the fiscal year. Those numbers don't quite mesh, but we did in fact actually reduce overall water use by 3.3%.
So you said you're going to clarify further next in April. How do we make the jump from minus 3.3% to 15.5%? You're getting great rebates and everything. That's a big, big goal.
It is a big goal, and that's part of what we're doing with our conservation programming is looking at where do we get the greatest impact. So that's probably going to be residential outdoor water use. That's where we keep pushing the turf programs, also the WaterWise consulting, going out and making existing landscapes more efficient. And then also addressing water loss, like, we're doing with operations. So we're actually tailoring our programs to really target the areas that we think that will give us that bigger reduction. And just looking at water use in general in Glendora, we know that outdoor water use is a big component of that. And so that's why our programs are.
Previously, we saw lists of potential homes or users, I should say, with leaks or very high usages that were going to possibly be counseled or coached or assisted with usage. Are we still looking at list of heavy users and especially trends or whatnot too? Because I know we talked about your new system would have better analytical functions to examine that with the new system. So is that in place now?
We are in the process of getting that in place. We're doing a little data cleanup on our end first, and then the new analytical system that we'll be using will be able to run reports that help us tailor and target our programming to heavy, higher water users. We are, with the constant consumption with our AMI data, we are still reaching out to folks that have higher water use or unknown leaks, and that's where our WaterWise consulting program can come in and help them, find those leaks, make those corrections, put in a new irrigation controller and program it properly. But we are, by the time we meet in April, we should have that analytic platform online and be able to report on that.
Okay, good to hear.
Can I jump in?
No, we get David first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it. Sorry.
Russ, I had two questions. How is urban water use defined? Is that a metric, the objective? Is there a particular number that's used to determine what that is?
Over 3,000 connections. So urban retail water suppliers, that's what they use. So, and it would be just urban water use. It excludes agricultural water use in the state.
Connections, you said?
Yes.
So the number of people who are drawing water in the urban area is what the urban water use is, not how much necessarily each one is drawing.
No.
Okay. And then could you tell me the, sort of the definition of evapotranspiration rate?
Sure.
How is that calculated?
So the weather stations that the states have are over an area of cool season turf grass that is mowed to like 4 to 6 inches, and they have instrumentation on there that measures how much water transpires through that cool season turf grass to keep it green and looking healthy throughout the year. So when we say the evapotranspiration of cool season turf grass in Glendora for fiscal year 25 is 54 inches, then that's implying that cool season turf grass uses 54 inches of water over the whole year. Now, technically, there's an effective precipitation rate that is subtracted from that number. So it takes the rainfall over the year and takes 25% of that, subtracts that from whatever it took to keep that cool season turf grass going. And once it subtracts that, that is the number that the state will actually input into the urban water use objective. And the ETO factor will be different based on your region and based on the CIMIS data, the California Irrigation Management Information System data that's provided for your area. So some cities might have a station in town. We don't, and so ours is, they're using what's called spatial data to calculate these numbers for us, and that's provided to us from DWR.
All right, I know this is a little bit of a technical fine point, but I'm an engineer by training, so I was just curious. So is it calculated based on how much water goes into the area to maintain the greenness, or is it based on like the humidity in the air above the area to measure how much is leaving the area?
It's the transpiration rate, correct, of the plant and the soil.
So, and that means it's how much is leaving the plant and the soil? All right, so like they can measure relative humidity over time or something like that?
Right, yeah, these weather stations are pretty sophisticated.
Okay, all right, I've just always wondered about that. Thank you.
The CIMIS weather stations, they look like the lunar lander.
Yeah, yeah.
The soil temperature, wind velocity, humidity, temperature, rainfall.
Okay.
So my question was going to be, where is the closest one?
There's a Monrovia, Pomona, as far as I know, that are operating. So some stations are in operation, some come back online. But you can actually go on to the CIMIS website and look up different stations and see, what's closest. So
Three Valleys used to have a CIMIS weather station. Is there any possibility the city of Glendora goes through the state and gets one installed here in the city?
we would have to meet the requirements of that. So we'd have to have a site that they are okay with.
Yeah.
And that might be the tricky part.
Yeah, we had to jump through some hoops to get that, so, yeah. You probably can't. CIMIS.
Is it an acronym?
Yeah, it's CIMIS. Don't ask me what it stands for, but it is an acronym.
It's on the screen right here.
Yeah.
It's on the screen. I had no idea either what you guys were talking about until I saw the screen.
You had some additional add-on questions, Pat?
Yeah. So I had this thought coming into this meeting, and you had mentioned something about the urban water use objective. I know we've talked about it in the past. With the new development that's going on or is planned for more residential units in the city here, can you remind us again how that affects the urban water use objective? Because that theoretically means more residents equals more water use. So how do we go from 3% down to 15% when you got more people using water? And I think you're going to tell me that that's not really the way it's calculated, which I I think I'm wrong in the way I'm thinking about it, but can you just remind us how that works, how that's going to work?
Sure, the indoor residential water budget is based on the population of your service area. So if our population increases, then our indoor water budget increases as well.
Okay. Okay. I figured it was something like that. I just need a reminder. Thank you.
Certainly.
All right, with that, can I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second?
Second?
Second? Going to vote? It's been moved by David, seconded by Pat, and it carries 4-0. Great, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Russell. Okay, moving on to item number 4, the water supply outlook. Water Division Manager Damian Martinez is going to give us a report. Damian.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's been a little while. So tonight I'm going to present on the local water supply outlook. So we are going to start from the state and bring it down to region and local, and then look at some import water sources. So the next slide. So this is my first time presenting here, so I'm figuring out the. There we go. So in as far as our water supply here, we want to start by looking at the watering, the level of rain that we received recently through this rain season, starting October 1st. It will end next September. The current, as of January 5th, 2026, current level of rain in the state is at a record high. The maximum historic record is 18.37 inches of rain. We're currently at a 14.4%. It's an average of increase of 156%. That's due to the atmospheric river rain that we received. So you can see on the screen, it's substantially more. And you'll see that throughout the state as we go through these slides. This next slide is the bringing it down to our local region, to our hydraulic region in Southern California. We typically get a little bit less rain in this region. The average is usually at historic average is 5.7% or inches of rain. We're currently at 13.14 inches, which is 231% more than we typically would have this time in a typical year. So it's substantially more. Here's the what the trending looks like. Looks like year over year. The blue section is the average water or rainfall in a year. The green, as you can see, has a huge spike up. It just all goes straight up. That's 13.14 inches of rain as of January, early January. And then our average, or last year's, is the red line that you see across. Moving on to the untreated imported water deliveries, Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, USG 3. The Upper District was anticipating deliveries of 160,000 acre feet for 2025 calendar year. That has been shortened up. What we received was in USG 3 was 85,552 acre feet. And this is as of September 24th, 2025, all untreated imported water deliveries have been halted. And so as we move on to this next slide, Three Valleys Municipal Water District delivered, again, through the USG 3, had some deliveries last calendar year. of 13,229 acre feet. And again, this is under the MWD letter agreement. And again, deliveries through USG 3 have been halted, so there aren't any further deliveries at this point. And we see that again with the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District deliveries. A total of 535 feet were delivered, or were anticipated to be delivered. Only 160 were delivered. This is, so all this is due to the Golden Mussel, which has halted import water sources. Luckily, our reservoirs are pretty healthy. So we'll get to that next. So this is Coswell Reservoir, and what we'll do is we'll go down the canyon. And as you can see in these slides, so total capacity for that reservoir is 10,438 acre feet. Current storage as of January 6th is 8,673 acre feet. That puts us at 83% of total capacity, which is a historic high of 630% above what the historic average is. Going down the canyon into San Gabriel Reservoir. Total capacity for this reservoir is 44,440 acre feet. Current storage as of January 6, 2026 is 40,022 acre feet. Again, it's at 90% capacity, total capacity, and it's 508% above historical average. And this is a picture of what that looks like. So July 3rd, 2025, you can see, if you can, if I can point your direction to the center of that image, there is a backhoe in the middle of that picture, so just for scale purposes. See how small that looks? It looks like a little dot there. To your right, January 6th, 2026, we went up there to take a picture, and that's what it looks like. Even today, it looks very similar. Those are not twigs; those are full tree trunks floating in that reservoir. So it's massive amount of water. Going down the canyon to Morris Dam, July 3rd, 2025, you can see there's some water being held back. There's a slow release of that water through the canyon. So they usually maintain some level of water there, unless they're doing some type of work. You can see to the right, the volume of water is almost to the rim. USG 3 connection. You can see here when we're taking some water in July, before September, before they shut that down. We're flowing. As of January 6, 2026, there are no flows coming through the pipe, but the river looks like almost, it actually looks higher than when we were taking in water. So yeah, it's coming down. So moving into California and Colorado project rain and snowpack information. This is just a quick update on snowpack. Usually peaks in April, so we're still waiting for some more cooler weather and some more rain. Lake Powell current storage capacity is at 25%, so they're not at a very high level. Lake Mead also, we'll see in the next slide how that is continuing to decrease over the years. Total California system storage, that's all the reservoirs in the state are at 90% of capacity. And again, that's due to the atmospheric river rain events. We currently don't have new information on the allocations from the state project. So the last bit of information we had was the last time we received information was in April 2020. April 29, 2025. And so this is a trending of Lake Mead year over year capacity. As you can see, the top red line is 2024 levels. The next line down, the green line is 2025, and 2026 is as just starting off, and it's already at a lower level. Moving on to the San Gabriel Basin Key Well information. As of January 22nd, 2026, the Key Well elevation was 244,000 feet. On November 21st, 2025, those measurements were 246 feet. That's a slight decrease of 2.3 feet in 1 month. As of Friday, January 16th, 2026, that level has actually increased. It was 250 feet and 4 inches. That's an increase of over 5 feet in 1 week. That's due to all the rain and water coming down the canyon. The following slide here is our local production. We haven't taken any imported or treated water, imported water. It's all been produced locally. We do have a slight decrease for this last quarter of 400 acre feet, and that can be attributed to the rain and the weather and just lower consumption. PM26 connection at Delton Wash for the spreading ground operations. There was a total of 113 acre feet spread last calendar year, 2025. Currently, there aren't no deliveries. Again, that's due to the mussel, the golden mussel, which we'll present briefly in this next slide. I'm not sure if I believe you guys or the commission has received some information in previous meetings. It continues to be an issue. Staff is actively involved in regional conversations with the county, water master, and other agencies. It's affecting everyone. And this next image is what it looks like. So it is very invasive. It has been traveling pretty quickly throughout our waterways. Paul will be presenting more information to the commission during his next presentation. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. Thanks, Damian. Greg, questions? David?
I just was what's being done about the gold mussel? I mean, we have had updates in the past, but what's currently going on with it
Currently,
deal with it?
So Paul is going to present more details on that and more in depth. But there are mitigation measures that have been identified. But it's a challenging species to try to mitigate and eradicate, really. And that's the goal that they're trying to achieve, is eradication.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the quagga mussel.
It is.
We found a solution to. It's important that we find a solution to that, otherwise the spreading water is not going to be coming in.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a challenge. So I do have, like Damian said, I've got a little bit more of
Okay.
our, I guess, local response.
Okay, great. Do you know when the last time Cogswell, St. Gabriel, and Morris were that high? We've had a couple of rainy years a few years ago, but I don't remember the water levels behind the reservoirs being that high.
I'm trying to remember. I was looking at the data. I believe it was quite a long time ago.
I know 2011 we had a really strong, and I believe it was either 2015 or 2016 we had some pretty good rains. But
Yeah, at
as
least
far
10 years
as
ago, more.
as far as the levels like that, it's been quite some time. One of the challenges that Damien kind of showed in his slides is you see at San Gabriel the summer months where the county's actually doing some mitigation. They're doing sediment removal, and that's why it kind of looks like a little river. And they're finishing up, I believe, a three or 4 year project that they just announced that they're going to be renewing for another 4 years of removal because of it was originally the Bobcat fire, and now it's the station fire that's caused a lot of the sediment and the debris. So you kind of see even the water on some of the other ones, the water quality or the water color, there's a ton of sediment. So they're actually trying to hold that in San Gabriel so that it doesn't affect Morris and down the river. So it's definitely a challenge, not only with all the other things, the flood control mitigation, but then also the water quality and some of the sediment. So the fires have presented some challenges to the county.
Do you know how far, were they close to completing their work behind San Gabriel before the rains came, or?
They had, the way that they had planned it was that they knew that every year they were going to have to kind of, there was just a certain amount of material they were trying to remove. So it wasn't necessarily a completion. It was almost like a maintenance that had been a long time coming.
Yeah, full-time employment job where every year.
Yeah,
they're just gonna have to-
it's pretty impressive. They actually, the way that they set it up, they issued, I think it was a 5-year contract to the contractor. They set up a whole conveyor belt system and trucks. So you can kind of see in that the right portion of the picture on the left, those are all staged dump trucks or bins that they fill up, and they just have constant trucks hauling that sediment off. So it's quite the process that they go through, and then you kind of see they're actually doing that on purpose on the pooling of the debris, the floating. They were actually the county staff was explaining they want to keep that up so that it doesn't clog the actual dam. So they'll keep the minimum pool higher just to make sure that debris, and then they have a process where they skim it off with equipment. So the county's got quite the system. They've been operating those dams for many years, so they've got it down.
Do you know if they had to use the emergency spillways?
They did not. That was part of the conversation that we was asked, and they were very close to having to do so.
Okay, great. All right,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Damien. All right, can I have a motion? Speak up.
Motion?
A second.
We got Pat for the motion?
Yes, sorry.
David for second?
Second, yeah.
Okay, let's vote.
I was just looking at those photos. I don't think since I've been on the board, I've ever seen them that high,
Yeah,
those water levels.
everybody vote?
Yes.
Great. Passed unanimous 4-0. Great, thanks. Let's move on to item number 5. This is the Water Division Operations Update. Assistant General, Assistant Public Works Director, Paul Zampiello will make the report.
Thank you. Again, good evening. And as Damien was given a little bit of a preview, I wanted to give the commission a little bit more of an in-depth or up-to-date on the golden mussel. So the golden mussel has been something that has been on the radar of not only the city, but Watermaster and some of the regional, metropolitan, and state water project. So the golden mussel, as it's come down the conveyance, We knew that there was going to be a point where we were going to have to work with the county. And Watermaster, Three Valleys, Upper District, they had taken the lead on doing so. Back in September, mid-late September, the county notified Watermaster and Three Valleys that they were actually going to halt any deliveries in the river. So that definitely put everybody into a rush mode to start trying to figure out what a mitigation plan was. So there were some conversations with the county through that process. Glendora participated in some of those stakeholder meetings to be more familiar. And the reason why we were involved was, as the commissioners are aware, and the picture kind of illustrates, is we are part of the canyon basin up in the mouth of Azusa Canyon, where some of our main wells actually are right there. This is the San Gabriel plant, which is just north of Azusa Greens, up on Sierra Madre. This is one of our primary well sources, and the county has these spreading or these flood control basins that they utilize and are able to transfer water into, and these actually percolate down into the basin, which we pull out of. So the Canyon Basin, and you've heard the main San Gabriel Basin, they're one and the same, but the Canyon Basin is a sub-basin or a isolated portion of that, and so its influence kind of stays within the canyon. So that's why it's so critical for that local and imported water. When local rain, isn't as prevalent or as abundant as we've had, we rely on that imported water to augment the basin. So that's just one of the challenges that we face, Azusa and some of the other canyon producers. So Upper District, Three Valleys, and Watermaster worked on a mitigation plan. They submitted that plan, and unfortunately, part of the county rejected that plan initially. They don't want a mitigation or a kind of a maintenance plan. They were requesting or wanting for elimination of the mussel altogether. And the unfortunate part is what we're finding is the golden mussel is very similar to the quagga, but it faces or it causes some other issues. And one of the issues that it faces is now, because it's in the State Water Project, the quagga mussel had been in the Colorado, and one of the issues with the river is that we can't dry out some of the areas, and that's really the only way to eradicate it, other than some kind of treatment or chemical chlorination. And so what the practice is to dry out an area, then after a certain amount of time, 3 to 4 weeks, it'll kill the mussel. With the State Water Project or the quagga mussel, we were able to use the state water to flush out those areas that couldn't be drained or dried out. Now that that's presented, it's kind of affected the quagga mitigation plan that was established 10 years ago, that we can't use the State Water Project to get rid of, so we can't switch over to Colorado. So it's just, it turns into a really big mess that we're having to kind of work through. And I think the biggest thing is now that Three Valleys, Upper, and Watermaster are working together, and they have been working together, but have taken the lead. There's some more conversations that are going on with the county to just try to emphasize the importance of getting through a plan and getting the connections reestablished, because the water's there. It's just the concern on the county's part is the cost, the maintenance cost that this mussel, and who's going to kind of burden that cost. So I think it's just going to take some more conversation and some discussions amongst all the parties. So as long as everybody stays at the table, that's the biggest thing. So moving on, and this kind of goes in concert with the response, is because one of our main sources is the canyon. Staff started to look at this a little bit closer and say, what is our capacity? What is our ability as far as our supply. And with the quagga mussel, with other contaminants and constituents that are coming up through the state and potential issues, we wanted to have a better understanding of where we might be impacted if there isn't a long-term resolution. And so we've been working a long-term relationship with Stetson Engineering. They have a really great understanding of the basin. They've worked on a lot of Glendora's projects. They actually are the engineering firm for many of our initiatives, but also work with Watermaster and other agencies. So they know the basin really well. They're helping us to do a pretty moderate or modest evaluation of our current conditions, some of our secondary sources, whether those are interconnections with other agencies, potential new interconnections, and what we can do in kind of preparing for any issues that might come up in future years. So the hope of this assessment is to kind of understand the basin conditions as they stand now and what they could possibly be in the future, and then also to give staff some more useful information to then make some strategic planning as far as things that we might have to do, whether it's a capital investment or just operational changes. So that assessment, we began that end of last year or about a month ago. So we're hoping to have something early spring to where we can start to use that in when we start to go into the budget cycle. Just a few quick updates on system operations. So one of the things that we wanted to report to the commission was we conducted with the State Division of Drinking Water. They require or conduct what they call a sanitary survey. This is done every 3 to 4 years, where they come out, meet with the operations staff, meet with administration, and they will do an actual physical inspection, much like the health department with businesses, where they'll come out and look at some of our facilities, look at all of our facilities, ask some questions when it comes to documentation, and just do an overall system review. Staff's happy to report that through that process, there were no significant issues found. We did have some really great dialogue with the state staff or the DDW staff. They had some turnover, so they had some new staff that had come aboard. So getting them familiar with our system, getting familiar with staff was a really great opportunity, I think, to be exposed to what they're looking for and what we're doing with all of the improvements and operations. And they'll be providing us with a formal report in hopefully in late February. And then finally, we had provided an update back in July when we had, July, about the cross-connection control plan and program, and wanted to just give an update on that. So one of the things that we're doing is we submitted that plan to the state. They're in the process of reviewing that, and some of the key things that we're going to be working on over the next 6 months is we've got to, in support of that plan, adopt a new ordinance, giving the authority of what some of the requirements that the state had on the backflow and cross connection, actually updating the ordinance to give the authority to the city to conduct or oversee that plan. And then we're going to be working on updating the standard drawings and standards for backflow prevention, and then starting to do some of the on-site hazard assessments. And this will be going to commercial properties, actually some large residential properties, working with residents and customers to do a hazard assessment. And this hazard assessment is to evaluate the potential issues that may present if they do not have backflows, or if they do, and it's part of the state mandated plan. So in that, we are talking, or we're in discussions of looking to what staffing we need for that. There's quite a bit more work that's going to be involved in doing such a comprehensive plan. And most agencies are having to go through this process just because of the compliance aspect. Some of the reporting is a lot more thorough or a lot more expansive than it had previously been. So we'll keep the commission up to date on the progress with the new control plan. And then I just briefly wanted to provide an update. Metropolitan, or Three Valleys, has been providing us some updates on potential shutdowns of some of their conveyance pipeline. And one specific is the February shutdown that's scheduled actually in a few days, which will have an impact to two of our connections. And the good part about this is we, with it being scheduled and us not in any time soon utilizing treatment water, we shouldn't be impacted by this. But just keeping this in mind, and I think the real reason why I wanted to bring it up is that it's great news that not only we, but other agencies are doing major infrastructure updates. I think that's just kind of across the industry. And just a quick update or status on some of the capital projects. As you know, the North Glendora Reservoir project has been one that's been in the process for a few years now. We've been able to start making some good progress on that. One of which was we were able to finalize the environmental documents and do the public notice back in November. We did receive some comments, specifically from Department of Fish and Wildlife, requesting that we do further analysis of. There's a few other endangered species, or I forget the term, but basically we need to do some more surveying assessments. So one of which was a rare bee that we're going to have to do actual surveying and a report on that can only be done in a certain time of year. So we're going to have to do that in late March and get that completed before June. So we're going to be doing some more environmental studying, working with our consultant to do that work, and hopefully there shouldn't be any major impacts to the mitigation, but it's just having that identified so that when we go to construction, we can include that as part of the contract. So with that, we are finalizing the design. We did have to expand the design to include, and as I think we've presented previously, there's going to be some access issues with removal of the dirt for the new reservoir. And so one of the concerns of the residents in that area was the restoration of the road once we have, because we were going to have to go on a private road. So we've asked our engineering team to put together that design, and they're working on that. And the anticipation is getting that to us in the next month or so that we can look to hopefully go out to bid. The biggest thing is the environmental that could have some delays to the project. We're not anticipating significant ones, but what we're thinking is that we'll be able to go out to bid hopefully by summer, with the construction start late fall. One of the newest projects that we were in the process of doing is, as part of the Water Master Plan, we had identified several different initiatives as far as some of the water facilities, and one of which was identifying some safety and site improvements to the water reservoirs. And specifically, it was 7 reservoirs were identified as part of this project. And what we started to do is we worked with our engineering team to identify the scope. then realized that there was going to be some significant engineering just in doing the tank improvements. So we put together an RFP and got 2 qualified bids. Civil Tech Engineering was selected. We're actually in the process of awarding in the first meeting in February the contract to Civil Tech to then start doing the design. The goal of which is to get the 30% designs and engineering estimate completed before next year, so that we can build that construction cost into next year's budget, and be able to get the improvements. And again, the improvements consisted of some safety equipment for access to the reservoir, as well as some improvements to the water quality with tank mixers and nitrate monitors. And just a quick update on the Colorado pipeline project. We've just completed the 60% review of the design. We're working with our engineer to get the 90%. Once we can get those designs completed, we'll then be ready to go out to bid with those 90% and the bid documents. What we're anticipating for this is to have that design work done early spring, and hopefully go to construction with this project in Q3 of 2026. Cypress Avenue is another pipeline project that is a little bit behind as far as, or phased a little bit later. We're just completing the 30% designs. We provided some comments, and just to give context, 30% are the preliminary. It's basically the rough outline of where the pipeline is projected to be. Engineers provide that to the staff, and then we, after the first round of review, are able to produce the 60%. And then 90 is, the engineers never like to call anything complete until it's constructed. So that's why it's always referred to as 90. But we're anticipating that this would probably be late spring, with hopefully having this ready to go out in Q4 of 2026. Both of which are going to be great improvements to the water system. These have been, even in the short time I've been here, what staff refer to as hotspots, where we have numbers of numerous leaks, and so it'll be a great improvement, especially for the residents in that area. And then finally, the Glendora Avenue project. This design just started late last year, and this is going to be quite a bit of a comprehensive project, because this not only includes water and street improvements, but there's also going to be some significant sidewalk, ADA ramp improvements, and then also some traffic signal modifications it's going to be the entire corridor of Glendora Avenue from Route 66 to Gladstone. And this consists of a 18-inch water main. 18 portions of it are 18, some of it are 24-inch. So it's a large water main for the system. So it's going to be a large undertaking just in the water. But this project is almost ready for we're working on the 30% design. I think that we'll most likely be done with the design late summer, early fall, and we're still because there are some other components, still tentative on the construction date of this. With that, I know that was a lot, but I'd ask if there's any questions. I'd be happy to, if not, receive and file my report.
Thanks, Paul. Great update. I'm sure we got some questions. Nope, David doesn't have any. Greg?
Yeah, that was a nice update. The Glendora Boulevard, if I recall, which has been long delayed for some of the road work, that's also shared with Caltrans for the road work once we do the water.
There's a portion that's in Caltrans right away, and that's underneath the freeway. But there shouldn't be, based on what we've seen or we've been told by the engineer, there shouldn't be too much of a delay. There's actually even a DWP right away because the power lines are part of DWP's infrastructure. So none of those should have any kind of impacts or delays,
But for our residents, where you're matching pipe replacements that are requiring replacements, we're coordinating it with the street repairs at the same time to manage overall
Yeah.
city budget effectively, and that's
yeah, that's
exactly
that's
what
ultimately what we're doing is with the whole project. The pipeline was actually targeted for a later phase, and we've actually moved it up because the street was in the first phase of the street. So we're trying to be most effective with the budget, or efficient. We don't want to go and pave the street and then 2 years later go tear it up and put a new pipeline in. So, yeah. But ultimately, we have had some issues on that. And so that pipeline is still from the 50s. So it's ready to be, it was identified as in the master plan of being replaced, so.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know we've talked before about getting some updates on those, so thank you. So again, the thought occurred to me as we were talking about the Golden Mussel situation and what that's going to do to future supply, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, even though that was a different type of question about the water conservation. So again, with all the new development and so forth that's being done or being planned to be done, now we're talking about a potential water supply issue, right? Depending on how long this Golden Mussel situation goes on. So what's the plan then? And I don't know if that's something you can answer necessarily, but we're looking to grow the city population at a time when we're potentially going to have water supply issues, right? So I mean, unless I'm not understanding that correlation correctly, but it just kind of begs the question, like, are we going to have water supply issues, and can we really afford to have more people living here using the water? I know that's not under your authority whatsoever. I'm just wondering, just generally from a water supply standpoint.
Well, yeah, no, great question. As far as a water supply standpoint, this is just one of the challenges, just like everything, like when it comes to water quality regulations. We're still going to be able to provide water. We're very fortunate. Some agencies don't have this. Is we have the ability for treated water versus groundwater. So we have those two different sources. So I think that's one thing to kind of hang our hats on, is that we have that secondary source. I think that ultimately this is a short-term issue that we've got to find a long-term solution to. That being said, I'm not sure when it comes to the development, one thing to consider is Glendora is built out. There's no empty areas we don't have orchards or anything like that. There's not undeveloped area. It's all going to be redeveloped. So I think when we look at some of the properties, depending on what was there, sometimes it's a wash. If you have a commercial building and there was a factory there or some kind of a commercial building, and then you put housing there, with the new regulations for condensed housing or anything like that, that it's almost sometimes a wash, and that's what we look at it in a water system as a meter size. So if the meter size change, your water usage, your capacity to draw into the system, it doesn't change. It's only if you add more meters, if you add more housing, and that's part of like what Russell had reported earlier, is that those numbers for new efficient development is almost kind of I wouldn't say a wash, but it's close. It's not as much that production as we reduce, as we become more efficient in that, you don't see as much. It's almost kind of a one for one kind of thing.
That's a good point. Thank you for saying that, because I live off Gladstone, so, and there's new houses going up on Bonnie Cove right by the freeway. I don't know if anybody's seen that. 20-some units, and that was an empty lot, right? So that's flat, new consumption right there, right? And not that I care about what's going up there. It just kind of begs the question that there's more residents and they're going to use more water. But that's interesting what you said about, the 1-for-1. If it's something else that was drawing water and now it's going to be houses drawing water, and that's something good for somebody like me who's concerned about it to keep in mind, because I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
I just think, oh, there's more people, there's houses,
Well,
not considering what might have been there before.
And again, that's the other thing too, is like the Bonnie Cove development is one of those ones where there's new services put in. But I think one thing for anyone as far as a customer is that everybody has to buy into the system. So any new meter is actually having to kind of invest, just like everybody has kind of credit to the system. So they have to buy into the system. So that buy-in goes towards any improvements that everybody else doesn't have to burden. The residents or the customers aren't paying for their new meters or their new system to be put in. They have to take on that burden. So I think that's one thing to consider too, is that ultimately they're having to, whatever developer, they have to pay into the system. So that makes sure that it's fair and equitable.
That's a good point. So, okay, thank you so much.
Great, thanks update, Paul. All right, could I have a motion to receive and file the water system update?
I'll motion.
Moved by Greg, seconded by
I'll second.
David. Can we have a vote? Vote unanimous 4-0. Thanks, everybody. Okay, moving on to item number board staff closing comments. David.
Thanks. A lot of great information, including an education on some of how these things are calculated. So I appreciate your efforts.
Pat?
Yeah, very, very informative. I feel like this is one of the most informative we've had in a while. I mean, you always give a good presentation anyways, but even at that, I felt like it was just even more, which is good stuff. So thank you guys, and glad to have you on board.
Greg?
Yeah, it was informative. So looking forward to seeing the budget. And then also with our new system I know we had some significant issues with calls, payments with the new system. It's converted now. So I think if we see in April how that system is working, has it impacted our receivable payments? But because I know in my personal situation, the automatic payments were stopped. I had to catch up. I wasn't even aware of it and didn't get notices, so I imagine others may have been in the same situation. But from what I saw in the new system and going through the training, it was much more information available online for usages and data. And I found that kind of on my own, just going through that. So as we educate our constituents for that, it'd be great to see what the system capabilities are and share that as best as we can through this forum and amongst ourselves. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We can definitely give an update on the billing system.
Yeah, and the calls, and because I had problems getting in, it was responded, so I know the whole systems bring those issues. How are we doing in our call stats and, our overall management of this whole conversion?
Great. And the comment I have, Paul, is at our next meeting, I'd like to hear what your plans are for public outreach for like the Glendora Avenue project. It's going to be a major inconvenience to a lot, even the residential project as well. So, as water commissioners, people know us. We're going to get hit up for why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So if we could give us an update on what your plans are for your outreach, how the people are going to be, taken care of. during all these construction projects.
No, absolutely. And just we can definitely give a comprehensive update with that. But on North Glendora, Bill Wyckoff had done a lot of work dealing or outreaching to the residents on Glendora and the Easley Canyon. And I've inherited that, so I've definitely taken that on. I've actually been speaking to some of the residents up there. And rightly so, there's a lot of concern. There's going to be a lot of traffic up there, and from what I've been told by some of the residents is that there were some county projects with their flood control, and they did unfortunately those projects didn't end well as far as the residents being satisfied. So I know that was Bill's commitment, and also the city's commitment, to making sure that we took care of those residents. So we can definitely provide that, but that's been our focus. I've had some conversations with Adam and Moises. One of the things that's kind of keeping them up at night is as we start to get these projects really close to being ready, they're all starting to get really close to being ready at the same time.
Yeah.
So looking at that phasing is going to be important.
Gonna be a lot of stuff going on around the
Yeah.
city, so.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting in honor of William Weaver, but before I do that, Paul, you want to give us a little background on who Mr. Weaver is?
Yeah, Bill Weaver, Mr. William Weaver was the father of Bill Weaver Jr. Bill has been a long-term, very long employee, almost 35 years with the city, working in the water division, and his loss is our loss. So we're very thankful for adjournment.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll adjourn the meeting in honor of William Weaver. All right, thanks, everybody.